Hello everyone. Welcome back to this yet another lecture on environmental studies and environmental science. Friends, after a long time we are going to add this video with regards to environment. So just let's move on with this idea by taking an overview of what we had studied in our past lectures. So in our past lectures, we were on a point related to environment. We had studied something regarding what do you mean by an environment, what is the biosphere, what are the components, resources. Then we had also looked forward for one of the major important criteria with related to environment, and that was related to ecosystems and biodiversities. And in that ecosystem and biodiversity, we had seen one of the important event like threats and hotspots. So if you have not gone through or if you are not remembering it, you can just go back to this video lectures and rewind up yourself. Today we are going to start something with regards to important topic called as pollution. And we are going to stress on the point called as environmental pollution. For the reason because it is major point regards to studies of cultures, with regards to systems, with regards to what are the kinds of quality standard mentioned, what are the preventive measures to be taken, and henceforth we are going to look forward with today's lecture regarding what is the definition. We are also going and try to look forward on a point of what do you mean by pollution, what are the different kinds of pollution, and if time permits us, we are going to try and look forward for a point called as soil or land pollution. So let's start with today's idea of environmental pollution. Now, what do you understand basically when we call something as environmental pollution? So, the basic point when we call or when we have an idea of discussion about the environmental pollution, it is very clear that it is a degrading state of environment, and this degrading state is caused because of pollution, maybe deforestation, also by overgrazing, rapid industrialization, urbanization. And if you are having an idea, we have mentioned all these points, that is deforestation, what do you mean by deforestation, what is overgrazing, rapid industrialization, etc., in our early lectures. So pollution is basically caused by the factors which are either included by human or either included by nature itself. So both can be called as a pollutant only. But before moving on and understanding the pollution, we have to understand why are we including environment pollution as one of the major factor in our studies. The reason is very clear. Because environment is having a problem, and we all know that we are facing these problems because of our environment, because we are not taking care of our environment, and hence complete changeover of the environmental condition is taking place, which is indirectly affecting all the living systems on the earth, especially when we call of human. So that is one important criteria why we are studying these kind of pollution. The second important thing is because this deterioration is majorly caused because of human. I said it because it is one of the natural factor also, but it is one of the major factor that human is being involved in all these things. So maybe directly or indirectly we can consider that environment is having a disturbance in itself because of human existence or human pollutant created. Next, what is important then? We have to think about the cleaners of the environment. That means we have to change our lifestyle so that at least a partial part of environment will be clean, and that will be called as an ecological balance, because complete imbalance has been created in an ecology, and henceforth you should develop such a kind of technology. Being a student of engineering, or maybe being a student itself, a citizen itself, one should have a very good idea how to develop a technology. If you are developing a technology, how to convert this technology so that environment will also be benefited. That should be our main motto while thinking about the environmental problem. So modernization technology is one of the source which can help environment to control its pollution. And of course, if we are trying to create pollutant, we should be only the purpose to at least eliminate some amount of pollution. So let's start with our very first idea, as we have been discussing since the past few lectures. by going through some definitions type and then moving on to a higher part which will take us into the depth of our studies. Let's understand what do you mean by the definition of pollution. Now, one might have an idea, but let's understand from the deep technicality of the environment. So, environment pollution means you are adding some impurity to the environment. Now, what do you mean by adding impurity to the environment? It means maybe you're adding chemicals, maybe you're adding garbage, a particulate matter, or maybe some kind of hazardous matter is being created, and this hazardous matter is actually being converted into the pollutant which directly or indirectly harms the human system also. Where are these pollutants then added? These pollutants of course are being then added to the sources such as earth, water, air, or maybe directly to the plants and animals also. Now one might think, how come directly to plants and animal system? It is very simple. Think about it that we are moving in an open air, and if there is a lot of pollutant which is present in the soil. Now one can also imagine that the soil pollutant cannot be inhaled by the human system directly. But this is completely wrong. Some pollutants are there which can be directly affecting the human system when you come in touch or when you come in contact with the soil system. So this can be an harmful part or harmful pollutant directly in relation to the animals or directly in relation to the human beings. So basically what you have to keep in mind is that pollution or environmental pollution is nothing else but an impurity which is being added. Okay, so this word is very important, that is adding of impurity to the system, that is natural ecosystem, and this addition of the system will cause an harmful effect, rather it will create an unhealthy lifestyle among the organism, and that is called as a pollution. Then we have to understand, like I said in the earlier stage only, that you have to be clear what kind of pollutant are there. Now if I am giving you a single question, what are the types of pollutant, of course I know I will be getting such a kind of answer that it's land pollution, or maybe I'll call it as soil pollution, air pollution, then it is water pollution, etc. But you have to keep in mind that first of all, at a primary stage, you have to clarify it as natural pollutant or artificial pollutant. If ever question comes in such a format, always keep in mind that it is the first criteria that either you have to look forward whether it is natural or whether it is artificial. Let's understand what do you mean by a natural pollutant. So, natural pollutant are something which is a result of natural phenomena. Okay. Now, what do you mean by natural phenomena? For example, fires which go on, wildfires like volcano eruption or maybe a tsunami. So that is also a kind of pollutant which is being created because harmful chemicals are being released out at a vast state when the pollutant directly affects on the surrounding system which is not compatible to you. So that is called as a volcanic eruption. Maybe that because of volcanic eruption there is a complete emission of nitrogen and sulfur products. So that is again a pollutant. So it can be a natural form. That means nature is creating a pollutant itself. Now when we say that nature is creating a pollutant itself, of course it is at a larger state also, because one can imagine if the volcanic eruption occurs at one part or a wildfire occurs at one part, of course it will cause that much amount of smoke or fog, or that much amount of pollutant will be released out in the environment, which will of course then pass because of the air. So of course it is not at a small scale, it is at a larger scale. The second, which is important and very important rather, is called as an artificial pollutant. Now what do you mean by artificial pollutant? These are the pollutant which is caused because of human activity. Okay, so it is one of the major factor that human being are involved. When human being is involved, it will be called as an artificial pollutant, or you can call also it as man-made pollution, or the third word can be applied for it, called as anthropogenic pollutant. Okay, anthropogenic itself also means that man-made pollution. So when these kind of pollutant which is created by human, of course if one can imagine, it will be very clear that human created pollution are because of industrialization, vehicular emission or overuse, etc. Okay, so we are going to study on these in the further slides, but now you have to keep in mind one thing very properly and very clearly, that we are going to study all the pollutant based on these two major factors, that is natural pollutant and artificial pollutant. Now let's move on to an idea of understanding natural pollutant at the very first stage, because it is one of the important factor which we are going through nowadays, that nature is being completely creating a haphazard. Because of this haphazard, because of this problem, the human system is completely getting lost, or maybe the human system is completely in a state of end, because finally the nature is taking on a call to control itself. That is the major problem which humans are also side by side facing. Now what can we say when we are discussing such point of natural pollution is, like I said, it can be a volcanic eruption. So release of gases or volcanic ashes is one of the major factor which can cause a major effect on human health, especially on the lungs, because there is a complete emission of the sulfurs and nitrogens which is, if inhaled by the human nearby cities, if consider a volcanic eruption occurs and if the smoke and fog converted into a fog, or converted later on into an acid rain enters into a human environment system, it will of course have a complete haphazard or effect on the human system because of the sulfurs and nitrogens which are released out, and henceforth volcanic eruption is hazardous. The second important can be a forest fires, that means of course a similar part, more amount of smoke and gaseous product are released out, which of course is not that helpful for the human being. The next one is dust storm. So one can see over here a picture which I am scrolling with my cursor, that it is a dust storm. One might think that dust storms do not cause that much of problem, but the fact is the dust storms also carries some of the pollens, and of course the second point now comes to us, that is carrier of bacteria spore system pollens, which is a pollutant for the human. So you might have looking forward people around you who are being allergic. Okay, so we have different kind of allergy, that means we do not have that much compatibility to that surrounding system or that particular environment, and that is called as an allergic problem. So many people have an allergy of, like they have allergy of dust, they have allergy of spores, they have allergy of pollens. You might have been finding around the people around you who have allergy also of the smell of flowers. So basically it is not purely the allergy of smell of flowers, but it is the pollens which is there present around the flower which is causing an allergy. Okay, so that kind of pollution may be also hazardous for the organism. The second one, the important factor over here to study is the decaying property. Because we know decay is one of the important criteria of any organism to end the life. As we have studied in our earlier lectures also, अगर decay नहीं होता है तो life system का cycle complete नहीं होता है. Okay, so ये हमने देखा भी था that if you want to complete a life system cycle, it is very important that the process should be completed, and the end of the process is nothing else but a decay system जो microorganisms करते हैं. बट थिंक अबाउट इट, अगर ये डीके मार्शी लैंड में होता है, यहाँ पे ज्यादा अमाउंट ऑफ वाटर कंटेंट, ज्यादा अमाउंट ऑफ कैप्चरिंग कंटेंट इतना ज्यादा होता है कि ऑलमोस्ट वहां पे वेटी एरिया हमेशा तैयार होता है, काफी ज्यादा मॉइस्ट एरिया तैयार रहता है. तो इस साइड में प्रॉब्लम ये होता है दैट मॉइस्चर इवेपोरेट होने में हेल्प नहीं होती, या फिर सन वहां तक पहुंच नहीं पाता है, सनराइज वहां तक पहुंच नहीं पाता है सो दैट इवेपोरेशन हो जाए और वहां पे मार्शी गैसेस तैयार होते हैं. सो मार्शी गैसेस का तैयार होना इसका मतलब होता है कि मीथेन गैस तैयार होना. और अगर किसी एरिया में मीथेन गैस तैयार होता है तो ऑफकोर्स वन कैन इमेजिन कि ऑर्गेनिक मैटर, दैट मीन्स ए डीके कंपोज्ड मैटर जो हम ऑफकोर्स यूज कर सकते हैं रिसाइकिल फॉर्म में, अब यूज नहीं हो सकता बिकॉज यहाँ पे मीथेन कंटेंट ज्यादा है. एंड आप सबको पता होगा कि मीथेन इज वन ऑफ द component, दैट इज alkane component which is very harmful to the human. Okay, henceforth decaying organic matter is also one of the natural pollutant which is being created by the nature very cleanly. Of course, also you should keep in mind, अगर कोई question related to methane आ जाए, that means why is it methane more harmful in when it is being created in the decay of marshy gaslands, is because it is one of the light colorless gas. It is highly inflammable hydrocarbon. ओके, सो ये पर्पस होता है जिसकी वजह से मीथेन काफी ज्यादा प्रॉब्लमेटिक हो सकता है ह्यूमन एग्जिस्टेंस के लिए. Second, we'll go on to understand what do you mean by artificial system. Okay, now when we are talking something about an artificial system, of course we are talking about the creation of pollutant because of man, because of human being, and henceforth it is also called as I said, anthropogenic pollutant. Okay, so you have to keep this term very clear in your mind that it is man-made or anthropogenic or artificial. Now, of course, when we talk about it, it has a number of lists to go. We are going to discuss some of the more common list and which is common and which is causing more problems in human existence to the nature. And these problems are nothing else but industrialization. So we know the more amount we are trying to grow ourselves. Okay, like we are trying to develop ourselves economically, but more we are developing ourselves economically, that means we are creating industries. Of course, for the development of the country we are creating also the pollutant, and these pollutant are of course number of types. Like air pollution is directly created because chimneys release out the smoke which is hazardous directly into the air. Next part is chemical which is being created in the industry, or I can simply say जो खराब पानी तैयार होता है after use product तैयार करने के बाद में जो भी amount of water create होता है, it is not that helpful water for the human use, or and hence it is then released out directly into the land area. This will of course create a soil pollution directly or indirectly. And if it then reaches into the system which is underground water system, like we had studied, if you remember that we have studied there are 3 layers of water system. So if it enters into the underground system of water, it will of course cause into a water pollution. So one can clearly imagine that a single industrialization process can cause a number of problems. The second one, of course, is an automobile, and I do not have to explain it in very elaborate form because automobile is one of the problem which is everyone knowing from the very depth also. The next one is overpopulation. Of course, this is one of the major problem because we are having a less space, and in this small space, lot number of human being is being now living. So that is a problem which is creating a further problem that is called as deforestation. So for our survival, that means for our living system, we should be able to live at one place. We are directly cutting down the forest and creating a complete land area for the human existence. That means we are cutting down the jungle and we are entering into the jungle for as a human society, right? And of course it is creating a pollution because lack amount of forest, lack amount of oxygen will be there, and that is the reason why we are right now suffering from the problems such as asthma or maybe cancer or maybe different kinds of allergic systems. The next one is nuclear explosion. So like I said earlier also that we are trying to develop ourselves, but in this development part we are forgetting the system that we are creating explosions, and these explosions are of course creating pollutant. These pollutants may be directly harmful, like you can remember, for example, Hiroshima Nagasaki incidents. So that is one of the nuclear explosions which have created directly effect on the human society, and it is also causing an indirect effect on the human society because this was a state, that means the explosion took years back, but right now also you can find the countries are being suffering from some of the diseases because there is a complete genetic changeover because of these explosions. The next one is overexploitation. So overexploitation is simple again. That means you are exploiting a complete system, a single system. Maybe you can go for a forest, like an example. So you're using the forest again and again. Maybe you're using the forest equipments of material again and again. Or maybe you're using a water system rigorously. Maybe you're using a land system rigorously. So that is called as an overexploitation. Construction of building, roads and dam, of course, is one of the major anthropogenic idea which is the human system is of course creating now and then. You can find on your single road itself that huge buildings and roads are being created. And of course, dam is for one of the water survivor, but again it is one of the problem which is creating the pollutant because a single thing that we are creating the pollution of industrial and then we are dumping in all the material particulate which is pollutant, maybe it is hard pollutant or liquid pollutant, directly into the water. Then use of fertilizers is one of the important factor because for the development, that means for more amount of food you have to develop more because we are overpopulated, the countries are overpopulated, there is a lot of people who want food, and to provide each and everyone food you have to of course grow a lot amount of food material, and for this development of food material or this product development to fulfill the need of the people, of course you have to grow a crop, and this crop when it is having a limitation we are rigorously using a fertilizer or pesticides so that more amount of grain will be developed. So you can find right now that more hybridized product are being developed, right? So if you find for natural product, natural system, you find that even the seeds are being more in hybridized system. That means the crop is giving, because of use of fertilizers and pesticide, the crop is giving you more grain, but it is not in pure form, it is in hybridized form. And this fertilizer or pesticides which we directly or indirectly spray on the plants, maybe some fertilizers sprayed on the plants for the fruitation or some other are included into the soil. When it is included in the soil, it will of course cause the soil pollution. That means the fertility or the capability of the soil will be lost after some time. And if you spray directly on the plant, of course for the removal of the pesticides and etc., it will somewhere indirectly get dissolved into the system of air, which of course can cause a problem of breathing when you come directly in contact of that pollutant. So that is the system, that means called as artificial system. So if you have to keep in mind the idea regarding the pollutant, you have to keep very well that we are going to study these pollutant on the basis of two factors only, that is called as natural pollutant and man-made pollutant. Okay, man-made pollutant of course will be given you in form of three words, that is called as man-made pollutant or artificial pollutant and anthropogenic pollutant. Anthropogenic is very important, you have to keep this word very much in your mind. The very factor which we have discussed in natural pollutant is either we are finding it very small in an area, for example volcanic eruption or dust storms or forest fires. It is very small area which you find, but it is more hazardous also, because if the area is being covered at a larger state, of course it will pass on at a larger state also, because air is free to move everywhere, so it will take away whatever it wants and it will never distribute itself. Like I'm carrying a pollutant or I'm not carrying a pollutant, it's not the distribution for an air, and of course it will pass from states to states or countries to countries. The artificial pollutants are more hazardous because the number of list is huge. Even though we have discussed some points, always keep in mind that this list can expand to an unlimited pattern, because every point discussed over here, like if you go for industrialization or if you even go for construction of buildings or even if you go for fertilizer use, you can find that number of subroutes, or I can say number of substates will be emerging out. So industrialization itself can give you a number of problems, different kinds of problems. It can be multiple problems, it can be a single problem in each and every pollutant which is created by human. So I hope you people have at least understood the basic idea with regards to what do you mean by pollution, what is the cause why we are studying, why we are trying to study the pollution. Next, we have also seen what do you mean by natural pollution, artificial pollution. We have seen subparts of these natural and artificial pollutant. Till the next lecture we meet, and in the next lecture we are going to try and study something with regards to a soil system, that means called as soil pollution or land pollution, and in that we are going to try and understand what are the effects, what is environmental causes, how can we prevent, are there any measures which can really human take involvement to control the land pollution. Till the next time we meet, study hard.